Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I gotta tell you, I am loving what happened yesterday with Anthony Fauci and Rand Paul. In fact, I'm gonna have a little sip of my coffee, and we're gonna get to it, because I can't believe that CNN actually ran this piece. It's almost unbelievably shocking that they would do such a thing. Because I was ready for full board hit piece, and although it wasn't perfect by any means, I had recently seen the gentleman that they were interviewing at least talking about the lab hypothesis on the Joe Rogan podcast. So I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this guest is going to be somebody that's at least going to bring up some of the validity of what Rand Paul had to say. Rand Paul also did a victory lap. I believe it was over at Fox News. We may or may not play that. And then we may play the entire exchange with Anthony Fauci and watch his body language again, because this is the first time I've seen Anthony Fauci completely and totally uncomfortable and not ready with talking points and, his Faucian madness, really. So before we get there, I want to encourage everybody to thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. Join the Burmis Brigade. We're trying to get we've been frozen for a while. Tomorrow, we're supposed to lose one of the strikes. We'll see. We'll see if we're losing strikes or not on this channel. I'm highly skeptical. But we want to remain on this platform, and we want to thank Odyssey for backing us up in case we do get taken down, because we've already had our channel taken down a little over a month ago, 5 weeks ago or so. Completely taken down. No real explanation as how do I got my channel back. I saw that the Last American Vagabonds channel is back, and I'm wondering how that happened as well. Mark, thank you for the tip over at The Rockfin. He says, keep up the good fight. So if you want to watch uncensored, right, because, for instance, yesterday's Anthony Fauci video, I really probably couldn't play the Tucker Carlson backstory because he had done a piece the previous night. So instead, we just went over to Rockfin. You can totally check it out there. And I really encourage you to check out the Cuomo video if you haven't, because all of it is very important. And remember, Rockfin now does show up on the App Store, and the app is really cool, especially for paying subscribers. So that's a great way to support me, is through a paid subscription in which you endorse me, and you don't just get my premium content. Excuse me. You get everybody's. Okay. So,
the ongoing feud between Republican Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci was on full display.
So Senator Paul used his allotted time to question Dr. Fauci about the origins of the virus and the role of the Wuhan, China virology lab.
Now, right out of the gates, it wasn't a smear fest, right? It wasn't a smear fest. Now, we're going to play this part because, again, it shows that at least CNN showed like a good, I think, 1.5, 2 minutes of the exchange, and they let Paul talk. And a lot of people have been pointing out that somewhere during this, when Paul is really pressing Fauci, the guy in the back with the glasses starts laughing because he can see how uncomfortable Tony Fauci is.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now
Notice the double negative.
fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research.
Let me stop. That's another thing when we do this. He stumbled, he says Barrick, and he says bear it. This is by far the most uncomfortable I've ever seen Anthony Fauci in a public setting.
Research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina, not
You don't think
in
inserting
China.
So
They
do you
write
still
about it.
support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan
Do you
virology.
support sending money? We did, under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support
the guy
the
nodding.
money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been infected.
Or perhaps it would be irresponsible to send it to the Chinese government that we may not be able to trust with this knowledge and with this incredibly dangerous viruses. Government scientists like yourself who favor gain-of-function research.
I don't favor gain-of-function research in China. You are saying things that are not correct.
Now, it's about 90 seconds cut up. I think they could have made Fauci look worse, but damn. Now, here's the crescendo. And guys, we've got 147 watching. Can we get the thumbs up to 100? Watch this piece. We got about 4 minutes. And this is the first time I've seen CNN anywhere take seriously that this virus maybe didn't come from a bat or a wet market or a pangolin. And that is an important turning point. Okay, because that at least opens up the conversation to people that are entranced by their brand of media, be it CNN, be it Fox News, be it MSNBC, etc. It's a brand. Okay, it's still Coca-Cola and Pepsi are still sugar water carbonated.
So let's bring in now CNN political analyst Josh Rogin, columnist for the Washington Post. Josh, thanks for being with us. We're watching a conversation between members of the government, but also doctors. So let's start here with just a basic definition. Gain-of-function research and why this was the center of the questioning from Senator Paul.
Right. Well, there's an increasing number of lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, actually, who are trying to figure out if there was any basis for the theory that the pandemic that we're all in was related to an accident at one of these Wuhan labs that were studying bat coronaviruses.
So let's talk about this again. You're allowed to talk about the narrative, okay, being an accidental leak or an accidental infection of this of a worker there and then a cover up after the fact. It is still taboo to even theorize that this thing could have been seeded and not by, say, a nation state. Because remember, just like China, just like you had Pompeo and others talking about this lab theory and it largely being discredited by the media, you had Chinese and Iranian leaders saying they got hit with a U.S. bioweapon attack. I just want to point that out because we have to be fair. But again, for this to be in the media and Rand Paul not to be demonized, and this man, Josh Rogin, able to speak about this openly now is a big, big thing.
Part of that is to try to figure out what the relationships were between the Wuhan labs and the NIH and other American labs all over the country. And what's gain-of-function research, what that means is taking viruses from the wild and doing experiments that make them more dangerous. Now, what Dr. Fauci said very clearly is that what he doesn't think that the work that they were sponsoring in Wuhan qualifies as gain-of-function research. And what Rand Paul was saying is that he thinks it does and other scientists think it does.
So let's just stop it there. I don't know that Fauci is even arguing the gain of function other than in the semantical point that it's not being done at Wuhan directly funded through the NIH. It was all, word salad, and he was extremely nervous. And once EcoHealth was brought up, it was a whole new ballgame. He also mentions North Carolina, obviously Fort Detrick, which has a very shady past connected to even the anthrax attacks post 9/11 that people still don't talk about. I would encourage people to check out Robbie Martin's work on that. He went deep on that. Biowarfare is not new. It's not new. And biowarfare programs have been going on for a very, very long time. So, I would even go a little further than this and say that really Fauci's talking around the funding and where the research is taking place and whether or not it's supported by the NIH.
So if you take away the semantic debate really over what is gain of function or what is not gain of function, what's left is that the Senate and again, both parties are trying to look into the relationships between NIH and Dr. Fauci and these Wuhan labs, which Fauci admits exists. And we're getting caught up in this politics over gain-of-function research and what's not gain-of-function research. But the bottom line is that there are relationships there, and there's increasing calls for Fauci to disclose more information about them.
Disclose more information? Disclose more? Here's another thing that I think is farcical. Okay? If you don't think that at the highest levels of our intelligence agencies, whether it be the NSA, okay, or the CIA, or even the FBI, don't know exactly how all of this actually started, okay, and you don't think that, I mean, what planet are you on? Of course they monitor stuff like this. You know, the algorithms, the AI that DARPA has produced decades ago and hidden away from the public. You know, that's why they know you were prepped for a gas shortage from a cyber attack right now. You know, they're only talking about cyber attacks the last 18 months plus hardcore. Hardcore really started to bring it up when they were running their little pandemic drills and then drove it home with COVID-19 84.
Okay, that's interesting, Josh. And of course, you're steeped in this. You have been reporting on this for a year. So that sounded to the rest of us like a kind of a wonky detour. But is there something that Dr. Fauci or NIH is not being forthcoming about?
Wow, is there?
Well, yeah. Well, that's the question. So, you know, what's been alleged is that the oversight of this research that Dr. Fauci did sponsor through the EcoHealth Alliance, as he admitted, did not go through the proper oversight channels, okay? And that if it led to the pandemic that we're in, then Dr. Fauci and his team deserve some blame for supporting it. Now,
and you know, this guy Rogan is really going milquetoast. And when I watched, for instance, last night with Tucker Carlson, he had somebody on who also wanted to pull it back and say that, you know, Anthony Fauci's done so many other things that are bad that we don't even really have to worry about this. And then he talked about 2 treatments. One was dextromethasone, and one of the other ones I think was like the antibodial treatment. You know, didn't talk about the ones that you can't talk about here on YouTube. Okay, which we're not going to talk about. But my point being is no, Anthony Fauci is absolutely criminally liable. All right? Absolutely criminally liable. And I know so many people are talking about Nuremberg Code 2. Look, Nuremberg failed, in my opinion. It really failed. First of all, it strengthened this idea that there, you know, was an international body that wanted to save us. Meanwhile, we divvied up, you know, the juiciest Nazis, if you will, with Russia. And cut all sorts of backdoor deals. So what I want to see, again, this is my vision before we go back to this piece, because I want to, you know, there's another good 2 minutes of this piece, and it's very fair. What I want to see is these criminals tried by a jury of not their peers, because their peers are other members of the predator class, other minions of the system, right? You know, Fauci's, again, like a capo. Right? He's kind of like Andrew Capo Cuomo that manages a certain subsection of this whole thing. He's got a nice house, he's got a nice family, great investments, right? He's on the inside. He's talking points. He's involved in all sorts of criminal activity. So for these people that we can bring to justice, and we should bring to justice, right? You know, we have these trials and tribunals, and obviously because this is treasonous and these are war crimes, you have a prison inside the United States, okay, where they will spend the rest of their lives. Period. The rest of their lives. Not inhumane, but we also, because they love their technology so much, obviously they're going to be embedded with their Neuralink chips. So if they get out of line, you know, they can't get violent, or, you know, they can't think about escaping. Right? Because that's what they want us. They don't want us to be able to escape their mental prison, so they physically want to put things in us. Right? So they have those, but we also stream it 24/7 from every angle. All day, every day. And you know, you have war criminals like Anthony Fauci in there. with Joe Biden, if he's still alive, with Bill Clinton, with Ghislaine Maxwell, with the crew. We could even throw Harvey in there. You know, maybe we'll give Harvey a nice wing if he wants to sing on some of the other folks, right? Let's see who narcs out who. And we expand. We have real trials. And we don't have to do any violence or anything like that, because that's not what I'm for. I want these people fully exposed. I want the documentation out there. I want the technology that we have not to enslave humanity, but rather empower it. Let's keep going.
Whether or not you call that gain of function research, I think that's the question that these lawmakers are trying to get to. And I think on the one hand, it's a legitimate question, to be honest, Allison. On the other hand, I think they're also politicizing it. And that's really a tragedy, because it's not a political question. You know, we need to find out how the pandemic started in order to prevent the next one. And if that means that we need to know more about the relationships between Fauci's NIAID and the NIH and these Wuhan labs, then so be it. It shouldn't really be about Fauci. It should be about getting to the truth. And yes, Dr. Fauci and Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance have been resisting these efforts, various efforts, but now those efforts are increasing, and it's getting a little ugly, which again is really bad, because it shouldn't be political. It should just be about finding the outbreak of the origin, if we can, and that starts with China, but it also includes looking at our own relationships in our own labs.
Yeah, of course, the goal is to get to the answer. Listen, this is COVID-19. We're in 2021 and still have questions about how this originated. To speak to the investigation, is there any indication that the politicization will not overtake Congress, the administration's goal of finding out how this started, or is this off to the races on politics primarily?
And I mean, take a look. And now he's going to ask if this thing is political. Yeah, of course, it's been political. He's going to say, well, yeah, it's been political since day one. No kidding. No, open your eyes if you think that this hasn't been, again, we can't get into it here, but you've seen my other videos. And for these people, again, these propagators of a narrative that have gutted the middle class and restricted our movements, etc. Okay, all that stuff. For them to even come to this point and take this seriously, it's a holy shiznizzle moment. You know what I didn't hear here? I didn't hear the term conspiracy theory or nut job or wacky or baloney. Watch, he's going to talk about it right here in Political.
You know, Victor, that's really a great question, because it's been politicized from the jump, and everybody who's been following this knows that it's been politicized from the jump, and it's really hard to unpoliticize something once it's politicized. But here's what I'll tell you from my own reporting, and this is new. The Biden administration is taking a very hard look at this, okay? We saw April Haynes testify that the intelligence community is looking into both theories, the lab accident theory and the natural origin theory. So the Biden administration is open to the idea. They're trying to avoid making it more political.
Again, the intelligence community at the uppermost levels absolutely knows how this started. Why are we playing pretend? I'm so sick of playing pretend here. They absolutely know how this started. Stop. And that's where it's still in a cartoon level box, right? But this piece is about to end, and again, no one dismisses it. We're gonna play Rand, the whole thing. We're gonna do the body language of Fauci again. I'm gonna try to not interrupt the whole exchange as much as I've done in the past.
They haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I think you'll see more on that in the coming weeks. Also, there's a bill by Senator Menendez and Senator Risch to demand that the State Department release the intelligence. In other words, the U.S. government is sitting on a bunch of this information. Forget about Fauci for a second. Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and all these guys have this information, and it seems like it should be released, and so we should be able to try to get to the bottom of what actually happened, so that again we can prevent the next pandemic, which is in everyone's interest.
And once again, that's the end of the piece. And think about that. The open source information we've already revealed should be enough. I'm sure there are more intricacies available to many others. Now, before we get into the body language of Fauci, replaying that, I do want to play Rand Paul talking about this yesterday, because I also think that this is important, because this is where he really gets to explain, the deceptions of the Faucian nonsense. 127 likes. Can we get to 200? Let's do it. All right.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
The NIH has not ever and does not now fund.
And by the way, right now they're going to run, I want to skip over. It's just a clip show of Fauci denying. Right there. I have not ever. I did not ever. And by the way, I'm not a big fan of this dude here. I'm not a big fan of Fox News.
Senator Rand Paul today. Fauci says the NIH and the NIAID never directly funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But like we said, before that's true, but it's also misleading. You see, the NIH, headed by Dr. Fauci, sent $3.7 million to a nonprofit called Echo Health Alliance, which then turned around and sent $600,000 from that grant to the Wuhan lab. I hope you're following that. Take your time, play this back. Dr. Fauci's favorite sparring partner joins us now, Senator Rand Paul.
Not sparring. And I'm glad Rand went this far. He needs to go way farther. And the thing is that you think back to the documentary Plandemic, right? It highlighted not only all of this, but it gave you Judy Mikovits's story that also coincides with North Carolina, a.k.a. Fort Detrick, which Fauci alluded to. And remember, that was pulled. We know so much that has been censored on the internet right now is truthful and was truthful. And because it was pulled and because it was censored and because it was not allowed to flourish, their narrative has gaslit the world.
Senator Rand Paul, you feel as though, using some of the things I just said, that Dr. Fauci was being deceptive today. In what way?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that the audience know what gain of function is. They take an animal virus that's benign and does not infect humans, and they juice it up, they make it a super virus so it can infect humans. Now, ostensibly, this is done to study the virus, but there's a danger if that virus leaks that it could kill a lot of people.
And once again, leaks. What about it and used in bio? Why can't we ever say or used in bio warfare? Or used in bio warfare by nefarious bad actors?
When I asked him about this research, we knew the answer. The answer is this, that there's a famous scientist in the Wuhan lab. Her name is Dr. Shi, and she published a paper a couple years ago, which has been reviewed by MIT and says that it's a gain of function research. But in the byline, she has to list the sponsors. She lists Dr. Fauci and the NIAID as a sponsor of her research, which everybody acknowledges gain of function research, juicing up these super viruses. So I don't know how he can get around this. He could argue, oh, it was an intermediary group. We gave it to EcoHealth who gave her the money. I can't imagine he's on national television saying that he didn't do this when the peer-reviewed journal has a byline that says the author, this Batwoman, this scientist from the Wuhan Institute, that she acknowledges that the money came from Dr. Fauci and his institute.
And remember, it was all legalese and loopholes that allowed this to happen. Okay? And these people have waged more than lawfare against us. We've lived in a national security state for some time post-World War II that has gotten stronger and less accountable, stronger and less accountable, stronger and less accountable. And even then, when Eisenhower warned us about it, he said, in many ways, this is a spiritual battle because these people are trying to rip your very soul from you. Make no mistake.
So this is a dangerous act. Okay, let's say it's science. I want to stop the next one, so I got to see what happens when we activate these viruses. But other people say it's too dangerous. If this gets out, it's going to be devastating. Somehow, it could have gotten out. Is that what you're saying, Senator?
I don't think we know for sure, but yes, it could have gotten out. And there are a lot of people arguing that there are several different unusual aspects to the virus that make it look like it came from a lab and not from nature. They haven't found an intermediate host. They haven't found anything between the bat and the human. Both SARS and MERS went to an intermediate host like a ferret or a civet. But the other thing that's peculiar about this is that when we look at this and we say, you know, did it come directly? The way they're studying this in the lab, they studied the SARS virus. This is the one like COVID that came around in 2004, but had a 15% mortality. So they juiced up this already deadly virus and made it more infective into humans in the lab. They've admitted that they did that, but can you imagine 15% mortality? COVID-19 has a 1% mortality.
And again, the WHO says 0.6%. As of August. I still haven't seen where he's referencing 1. But let's talk about 15% mortality in other viruses. The other big thing about this is once a virus leaves a controlled area, right, and goes into the wild, it often does not do as well. So that also gives you the idea that it could have been seeded, right? Remember in the movie 12 Monkeys? The guy gets on the plane and is taking trips all over so he can seed it. And I usually don't love to go to Hollywood unless that's the thing we're going to get to. But the other thing is, instead of, flourishing, it seems to dissipate. And remember, they're telling us this year the flu disappeared, but quietly reclassifying a lot of flu cases to possible what? I mean, do you believe the flu just ended this year? Is that Fauci went on TV and said it. We played the clip. It's essentially, almost gone. Oh.
That means instead of 3 million people dying worldwide, if one of the viruses that she worked on with NIH money got out, 45 million people could have died. There are 11 labs like this in the U.S. that are studying animal viruses that they're transforming into deadly human viruses. 11 labs like this in the United States.
So what is important for people to understand is that forgetting about Dr. Fauci and his future, or your political future, this is about understanding how this started to stop the next virus. If we don't understand how this started, we're going to get slammed again and we're going to be ill-equipped once again.
So let me answer that for him. One of the things that was key that Rand Paul said is 11 facilities in the U.S. doing this. Those are just the U.S. This is not just going on in China and the United States and Russia and Israel. It's going on globally. Globally. So again, if we're gonna understand this, I'm not a guy that loves to play pretend. Okay? I'm a grown man. I don't believe in Santa Claus. I don't think it's healthy for a grown man to believe in Santa Claus. Okay? So, again, we keep talking about leak or unintended leak. I really want people to understand that it would be extremely difficult to seed anything worldwide through a leak, in my humble opinion. In anything. Broadly, I'm saying that.
I don't understand the lack of curiosity from Dr. Fauci. This is his business. Why is that not his obsession rather than being on 25 talk shows a day?
If you want to be even more confounded by this, they wanted to investigate what happened over there. The person they investigated is the head of EcoHealth. So they hired the person to investigate whether there was a problem at the lab. They hired the guy that gave them the money. So if something came out that said this virus came from the lab, do you think the person that gave them the money might have culpability?
Absolutely.
So they hired the guy to do the investigation who has a conflict of interest here. So you start to wonder, all of these wagons are circling. The Chinese communists aren't talking. We gave them the money. I mean, there's a lot of potential problems here. But once again, I'm not saying it did come from the lab. I don't know. But there's a lot of evidence that makes me worried about this lab, and the fact that people are not being honest, the fact that Dr. Fauci would lie and say that he didn't give any money to this lab. Now, maybe his answer is like you said, he gave it to an intermediary who gave it to them. But if that's his answer, I would think that's a kind of a curious way of saying it didn't happen when it really did happen.
And again, I'm glad that Rand is saying, I'm not saying it came from this lab, because we don't know that for sure, because this is going on all over. We've had false flags in the past. As I explained to you, obviously, the intelligence community, in my opinion, is going to know what they're working on there, especially if Fauci and others in the United States and in this scientific community are doing the research. Listen, this is a track trace database society where they're running algorithms on everything. And if you don't think that with that, they're not running algorithms on the very scientists that are running this research and have been, that go well beyond what you think is a psychological profile, you better believe they are. Okay, you better believe it. So let's finish this up with Rand, and then we're going to play the entire Fauci Rand Paul exchange, and we're going to go over every bit of the nervous Faucian body language, the kick to the Fauchster that he didn't see coming. We don't even have 200 thumbs up yet. Can we get to 250, please? Can we do that?
Got to leave it here. 4 months into the coronavirus emergency, the deputy director of the NIH wrote an email to Echo Health. And they said, quote, "You were instructed to cease providing any funds to the Wuhan Institute." Peter Danzig is the chief scientist there. He quickly got 77 Nobel Prize winners to sign a statement saying not to deprive them of their money. What's the desperation to get Western money into an area where we know the virus came from some way, somehow?
But here's the other interesting thing. If Fauci's deputy is writing a note saying that they're going to stop the money, that implies that there was money flowing to the Wuhan Institute. He says no money was flowing to the Wuhan Institute. Well, then why was it stopped? I mean, none of this makes sense. None of it makes sense at all.
And I just wonder when a Democrat, and I hear Senator Menendez and others are beginning to mobilize to understand that this is national security, and we got to find out. It'll be the biggest liability case in the history of man.
Again, and they're talking liability. That's where I have issues with this stuff, because there should be grown-up talk, right? But at the very least, again, if we had a justice system, people like Andrew Cuomo would not be running New York right now. Anthony Fauci would have never been put in the position he is. He certainly would have been at least removed once he said that human beings should never shake hands again. Well over a year ago now. So here we go. We're going to play this, and we're going to try to stay out of most of it.
Dr. Fauci, we don't know whether the pandemic started in a lab in Wuhan or evolved naturally, but we should want to know. 3 million people have died from this pandemic, and that should cause us to explore all possibilities. Instead, government authorities, self-interested in continuing gain-of-function research, say there's nothing to see here. Gain-of-function research, as you know, is juicing up naturally occurring animal viruses to infect humans. To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Juicing up superviruses is not new. Scientists in the U.S. have long known how to mutate animal viruses to infect humans. For years, Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist in the U.S., has been collaborating with Dr. Shi Zhengli of the Wuhan Virology Institute, sharing his discoveries about how to create superviruses. This gain-of-function research has been funded by the NIH. The collaboration between the U.S. and the Wuhan Virology Institute continues. Doctors Barrick and Shi worked together to insert bat virus spike protein into the backbone of the deadly SARS virus, and then use this man-made supervirus to infect human airway cells. Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
So let's stop it here, because now we're going to read Fauci's body language out of the gates, because it's uncomfortable out of the gates. And we're going to note every single time that, Fauci stumbles, because usually he's very slick. He's always got an answer. He's always smiling in that little Keebler elf way, right? 220 likes. Can we get to 250? Here we go.
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research.
So there's two, because one, let's go back, he stumbles right in the beginning, entirely. And then when he says entirely incorrect, and then he says, he doesn't say that, he basically is saying that they don't do that, but he can't answer it in the proper way. He gives a double negative. Watch.
And completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function.
His name is Dr. Barrick. There's three. He says Dr. Barrett. This is as comfortable as Fauci's ever been. Watch.
Institute
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research.
That's four. Does not doing gain of function research. It would have been has not done or is not doing. Listen again.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
So now he flips it and he goes, and if it is. So again, that's five because it is. He calls him an it. It's Dr. Barrett, not Barrick, and it's not a he, it's it. That's 5 times he's been that uncomfortable. You ever seen him do that? And then he also admits that this type of research would be going on in North Carolina, a.k.a. Fort Detrick. Okay, that's 5.
You don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein...
Look at him laugh. Look, you see the guy in the background? We got to play that. He's like, oh, finally someone is getting this mother trucker. Watch.
And if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
You don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is
You would
not...
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the project...
There it is right there. Another stumble. There's 6. It is not. And if you look at but 6, that's 6. Let's go back to it.
At least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan Virology
Do you support
Institute.
sending money?
So we'll give him 2 for that one. We'll give him 2 for that one. That's 8, right? That's 8. Let's go back.
That people tweet that.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan Virology
Do you support
Institute.
sending money? We did under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant.
I want to point out, he says EcoHealth, sub-agency, sub-grant, and he says right. You can hear him. So it's still 8, but I want you to listen to that.
We do not send money now to the Wuhan
Do you
Virology
support
Institute.
sending money? We did under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support the money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been infected.
Or perhaps it would be
China.
irresponsible to send it to the Chinese government that we may not be able to trust with this knowledge and with this incredibly dangerous viruses. Government scientists like yourself who favor gain-of-function research...
I don't favor gain-of-function research in China. You are saying things that are not correct.
Government defenders of gain-of-function, such as yourself, say that COVID-19 mutations were random and not designed by man. But interestingly, the technique...
Fort Detrick is in Maryland, not North Carolina. You're correct, Heidi. I'm seeing that in here. So obviously North Carolina has another facility. Thank you for correcting me. I make mistakes.
That Dr. Barrick developed forces mutations by serial passage through cell culture that the mutations appear to be natural. In fact, Dr. Barrick named the technique the no-see-em technique because the mutations appear naturally. Nicholas Baker of the New York Magazine said nobody would know if the virus had been fabricated in a laboratory or grown in nature. Government authorities in the U.S., including yourself, unequivocally deny that COVID-19 could have escaped a lab. But even Dr. Shi in Wuhan wasn't so sure. According to Nicholas Baker, Dr. Shi wondered, could this new virus have come from her own laboratory? She checked her records frantically and found no matches. That really took a load off my mind, she said. I had not slept for days. The director of the gain-of-function research in Wuhan couldn't sleep because she was terrified that it might be in her lab. Dr. Barrick, an advocate of gain-of-function research, admits the main problem that the Institute of Virology has is the outbreak occurred in close proximity. What are the odds? Barrick responded, could you rule out a laboratory escape? The answer in this case is probably not. Will you, in front of this group, categorically say that the COVID-19 could not have occurred through serial passage in a laboratory?
I do not have any accounting of what the Chinese may have done, and I'm fully in favor of any further investigation of what went on in China. However, I will repeat again, the NIH and NIAID categorically has not funded gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
We do support it in the U.S. We have 11 labs doing it.
Look at this shaking lip.
We have allowed it here. We have a committee to do it, but the committee has granted every exemption. You're fooling with Mother Nature here. You're allowing super viruses to be created with a 15% mortality. It's very dangerous. I think it was a huge mistake to share this with China, and it's a huge mistake to allow this to continue in the United States. And we should be very careful to investigate where this virus came from.
His lip quivers again.
I fully
Watch.
agree that you should investigate where the virus came from. But again, we have not funded gain-of-function research on this virus in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, no matter how many times you say it.
There was
didn't happen.
research. There was research done with Dr. Shi and Dr. Barrick. They have collaborated on gain-of-function research where they enhanced the SARS virus to infect human airway cells, and they did it by merging a new spike protein on it. That is gain-of-function. That was joint research between the Wuhan Institute and Dr. Barrick. You can't deny it.
Senator Paul, your time has
Again,
expired.
watch
Dr.
Fauci here.
I will let you respond
Watch his
to that.
lip
We
quiver.
need to move on.
Watch it.
Excuse me?
I will allow you to respond to that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean,
Your
I'm giving him
time has
9 for
expired,
that.
Dr. Fauci, I will let you respond to
9
that.
times,
We
looking
need to
real
move on.
uncomfortable, stuttering.
excuse me?
I will allow you to respond to that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, I don't know how many times I can say it, Madam Chair. We did not fund gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Thank you. Senator Smith.
9 times. Folks, the links are down below to support me. I am a documentary filmmaker. I would encourage you to check them all out for free right here, right now. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade, the Motion Picture. Thumbs this video up on the way out. Subscribe, share. At Jason Burmis is the spot that you can donate via Venmo. JasonIsVoid@yahoo.com is the PayPal, but the best way to do it is get over to Rockfin, make that premium account, endorse Jason Burmis, download the new Apsky and Hutch. That way you can actually download full episodes right from the app if you're a premium subscriber. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And that's where we're totally and completely uncensored. I want to thank all you guys for joining me. Remember, guys, it is not about left or right. It is always going to be about right and wrong. And Rand Paul just went hard. And when CNN isn't throwing them to the wolves, that's a good sign that we got a chance to take these monsters out. I love you, and I'll see you on the flip side.